Hello, all's well. Energy in the room right now is low. I knew, yeah, this is why I made a clickbaity title. So, hey everyone, I'm John. I work on GLIF. I've been working in the Filecoin ecosystem for a few years now, very closely with the Lotus team. And today, I'm almost gonna give you like a pitch on why it's a smart decision to take a bet on Lotus and build on it and put it in your tech stack. Are these waters up for grabs? Cool. So I'm just gonna dive right in and try and get through this so we can get to the happy hour. So, two simple questions or challenges to sort of set the context of this talk. The first is, if you have a new idea for a blockchain protocol or a product that basically requires smart contracts, how do you choose what ecosystem to build it in? There's a lot of decision-making vectors to consider there. But one especially important one that is the focus of the talk today is about how, once you've anchored yourself in that first protocol, how can you effectively ecosystem hop to activate other blockchain ecosystems to grow your base? And this talk, we've heard a lot of amazing talks today. They've all been really technical, really cool. This is less technical, more theoretical, but at the end, we'll get into a little bit more about architectures. But putting the conclusion first, my pitch is that this concept of foreign runtime plugins in Lotus and the FVM and Filecoin as a whole basically help us answer the first question. It's a good idea. It's a good bet to make to bet on Lotus because it will be much easier to efficiently ecosystem hop due to foreign runtime plugins. Foreign runtime plugins allow us to natively interoperate with other blockchain ecosystems. And that's kind of the pitch. And that's it. No, I'm just kidding. So, what are foreign runtime plugins? I had some notes here, but I'm just winging it. So, a foreign runtime plugin is essentially a custom Filecoin actor that implements its own validation logic. And that's a simplified explanation, but what that means is that a foreign runtime plugin could essentially implement a way to validate like an Ethereum transaction or a Solana transaction, and that opens up the doors for interoperability when interacting with Lotus and building your apps. The benefits come at all levels of the stack. Your users, they won't have to, download a new wallet, get a new seed phrase, write it down, put it in the safety, security box at the bank. The developers, they can just keep using the same languages and tooling and all the stuff that they're already familiar with without learning anything new. And that, I think, can help your product grow. And just to sort of reiterate this, I think that foreign runtime plugins, to me, it's a new concept in the blockchain world. And it's really unique. And the benefit of it is that we can effectively ecosystem hop to grow our audience. And at GLIF, GLIF, by the way, is a bunch of interoperable apps that are useful for the Filecoin network. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we plan to use foreign runtime plugins to achieve this. Like, how do we harness the superpower? And at the end, I'll just talk briefly about what is immediately coming next for us. So in terms of distribution, I like to think of it as 3 stages. There's the inner ecosystem growth, which basically means how can we get GLIF and our tools like our wallet or our Explorer or our multisig into the hands of more people who are already involved in the Filecoin ecosystem? That is an important question, and it's easier to do. The next stage is to go and activate other blockchain ecosystems, essentially ecosystem hopping. And I think this is kind of like an overlooked area of growth for blockchain protocols, because if you skip right to the mainstream, you're dealing with completely uneducated people who are not used to Web3 products. Where if you look to other ecosystems, you have people who are generally educated about crypto and what's going on and how to use stuff, but maybe just not in your unique flavor of your ecosystem, right? So how can we activate the outer ecosystems? Drilling in, this is an important question that I don't see that many folks talking about, and for me is really important, and for GLIF is sort of like the next step in our growth before we even talk about mainstream audiences. And it's funny, actually. So I was just on the plane making this slide. Like, why is it so hard? I'm sure in this room, we're all somewhat familiar with like the religious faith that some people have towards blockchain ecosystems. It's like cultish. And there's probably many reasons for that. And I'm not like a psychotherapist, so I can't tell you for sure. But like, one of the things that I think keeps people religiously aligned to their ecosystem is that the cost to change is high. So if you look at this like graph here, it's not just developers, it's end users. If you've ever tried to, for example, like coach one of your non-technical or non-crypto friends through using MetaMask, you find yourself like hitting some odd quirk where you're like, oh yeah, just like turn the volume down on your computer and try again. It's like, what? Like, why did that work? But like, we all know these unique things about our ecosystem that the thought of changing is exhausting. Like the thought of learning Rust when I already know Solidity, it's like, why would I ever switch to Solana? And we see proof of that. We see blockchain protocols migrate more easily to ecosystems that allow them to reuse the same tools and the same wallets rather than migrate to completely different environments and completely different tools, right? And by the way, like if this is just all heuristics and this could be a little bit off, like it's just to make the point that the more interoperable you are with an ecosystem, the easier it is to attract people to use your stuff and your protocols. So what was the next slide? Right. For GLIF, the logical conclusion for us is don't go on some crusade-like mission to try and convert the religious maximalists of other blockchain ecosystems to come to Filecoin. Let's go meet them where they are, right? So that means that users can use MetaMask, or they can use Phantom Wallet, or they can use whatever they already have, maybe just changing one or two small details. Developers can reuse their same developer tools without having to learn new languages, new patterns, worry about new security things, for the most part. And that allows us to bootstrap growth from existing healthy and vibrant ecosystems, which I think can help get a critical mass that will be necessary to bring your product into the mainstream, which is that third stage, right? So what's next? Right. The synopsis is, just to check back into the conclusion of the slideshow, foreign runtime plugins allow us to do this. They allow us to build smart contracts on Filecoin, the FVM, but also make that protocol available in different blockchain ecosystems so that the users and the developers don't need to change so much and learn so many new things in order to test drive it and experiment and build on it. So the last part of this is how we try and harness this power. Like, what does it actually look like? This is all very theoretical. Oh, no, wait, sorry. I'm actually just showing that this is already starting to become possible. It's not on mainnet yet, but here's an example of the GLIF wallet. This is me sending Filecoin to an Ethereum address. And this doesn't seem like a big deal, but for a user that doesn't know what an F1 or an F0 or an F2 address is, like this makes people feel more comfortable. I know what that 0x address is because I've been using it in Ethereum world for so long, right? Same with the Explorer. Now on the Explorer, this is a little hard to see, but you could see I've searched for this address, an Ethereum address on our Filecoin Explorer, right? That just makes the experience that people are used to on something like Etherscan come to life in Filecoin, which helps our tools grow more easily in alternative ecosystems. So that's what's happening now. And what is right? Okay, now we're talking about the more tangible architectures. So for GLIF, the way that we think about really harnessing this power is through this concept called ecosystem adapters. And ecosystem adapters are essentially lightweight wrappers around core logic that's implemented as a native Filecoin actor. And so you could imagine it's almost like the Lotus JSON RPC, right? Like the Lotus JSON RPC doesn't actually do anything besides send information to somewhere else in Lotus for the heavy, computationally expensive stuff to get done. then you can wrap other interfaces around that same logic, like a command line, or even if you wanted a REST API, or I don't know why you would do that, but the point is that you have different interfaces to interact with the same logic, and with foreign runtime plugins and ecosystem adapters, you can implement that logic in smart contracts, which allows users and developers to interact with your protocol doing all the stuff that you're probably like, I've heard it already, but it makes that stuff come to life where users can use their same wallets, developers can use their same coding languages, and they don't have to relearn new concepts. And additionally, ecosystem adapters can actually have built-in bridging logic or cross-chain execution logic so that you really can initiate a transaction on another EVM blockchain like Ethereum and have it finalize on Filecoin, which is extremely powerful. So what does this look like in a little diagram? Yeah, I probably should have done that one slide a little earlier. But this is sort of the very high, simple view of what ecosystem adapters let you do. And one more benefit, what I'm talking about here isn't completely analogous to, say, deploying your core logic on multiple different blockchains, right? Because your core logic still just lives in one place. But if you were to compare the two, imagine if you deployed a smart contract onto, let's say, Ethereum, Polygon, Solana, and 3 other blockchains, and suddenly you find a logic bug, not in any like syntax that you wrote, but just like some reasoning. How do you go and update that? Like that redeployment process it makes me shiver. Like it sounds terrible. The benefit of using ecosystem adapters allows your smart contract layers to also be much more maintainable and upgradable. So if you just have ecosystem adapters pointing to one core logic place, if you find a bug or logic reasoning in your core logic, you just need to update it in one place. And I think that's an important distinguishment to make. And this is just kind of saying the same thing that I've said a bunch of times, but just to reinforce it because everyone here is yawning. So a couple of, and so this talk is set a little bit further in the future, right? The only foreign runtime plugin that will exist in March or April will be the FEVM, which means that we have full Ethereum compatibility with the FVM. And that's a really, really big deal. But I think once we see how successful that is and how much of the Ethereum and EVM ecosystems we can bootstrap, it might be more obvious to make a pitch about doing another foreign runtime plugin. And Lotus and the FVM can scale to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but an infinite number of foreign runtime plugins. So then I obviously am going to use this time as just like a little bit of GLIF marketing. So first, this morning, we put out our new site, new look. You can scan this QR code. You'll see there's an announcement on there. We are launching with the FEVM foreign runtime plugin, a staking protocol, and completely non-custodial that we're calling GLIF pools. I can show you a little teaser UI, and this is kind of what it will look like, where you can just stake Filecoin and earn yield, and have different choices as to where you actually invest your Filecoin, different pools of risk. And this is sort of the high-level feature set from what we've done over the research over the last 6 to 9 months of what's important. So you can read this. I don't have to repeat it to you, but the most important thing is for the miners, you can take out multi-party loans without giving up ownership of your miner. And for investors, or stakers, you can stake your Filecoin without giving up custody of it. So that's, I think, about it from me. And for you all who sat through this entire day and 2 weeks, I applaud you. So yeah, thank you to everyone here. Yeah. And I will take questions if people have them, or if people want to jet, that's cool. Yeah.
Just one quick one. You said you're enabling multi-party loans. Is this nice. So you just mentioned multi-party loans for SPs. Is this a thing that's going to happen after the FVM? Or are you saying?
It has to happen after the FVM.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the FEVM, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. This is almost definitely a question for the FEM team, but you're the one standing on stage. I find the argument persuasive, right? Like it's exciting, and if you say this is a game changer for users, I believe you. But nothing about everything over there is kind of like core to what we think of the bones of Filecoin. You know, that's not about POREP. It's not even about IPLD or content address data. So my question is basically, why has no one done this? Why has no one taken this approach before? Do you know what is novel here?
Totally. Well, I think I have two thoughts on that. One is that in like the broader crypto space, I think there's this like competitive nature with layer ones, right? So Filecoin isn't going to compete on like transactions per second, or it's not going to compete on, the size of transaction fees. So I'd urge you, if you are building a use case on Filecoin, the best business bets that you can make are ones that use the unique features of Filecoin, which are making deals, which are storing data, retrieving data, computing on data, time lock encryption. I mean, that list goes on, and that list is growing. So this is like a generic, if you have an idea, but if I had an hour, I would probably drill down into be like, it probably isn't a good idea to build this thing because it's not unique to Filecoin. Now, you do actually see other blockchains try and emulate this. So if you look at like Cosmos, Cosmos has an app chain that is EVM compatible. I think Solana has like a patched layer that allows you to deploy Solidity to Solana. But these to me are, they're not native to the protocol, and that's the difference. So like in Lotus, we have the delegated address class. Like we have the protocol natively knows about alternative runtimes, or it knows that this is kind of, it needs to be validated elsewhere. In other blockchain ecosystems that I know of, and I don't know of every, like the space has so many possibilities, there probably is a blockchain that is doing something like this. I think that I lost my train of thought, but I think that having it natively in the protocol is different than a patched layer on top. Yes.
Just a quick question on these pools. What would be the lockup requirements? And I missed this part. Is it live already, or is this coming in the near future?
Yeah, so in the GLIF pools, there should be several pools that you can choose from with different rules. So things like lockup period, those are details we're still working out with any given pool. And this will launch alongside the FEVM. So it's not out yet, but whenever the FEVM launches, we will too.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and enjoy your drinks and your sleep.